Hello and welcome to Nintendo Agenda again. I'm already back to making another video. Notice this static picture that I've got here. It's not really a video, it's more like a vlog, like I've been doing my Nintendo's agendas, in the past. So you don't have to watch this. I may zoom in and explain some stuff about this picture. This is a picture that I made, taken from a patent, and going a little bit crazy with it, with whatever they might do for the next Switch, and that's what this that's what this video is about, is the next Switch. We're going to talk about worst and best case scenarios. Now, what brings me to this is the fact that Switch was announced, it was announced in 2016, but it was launched in 2017. And then the next hardware was Switch Lite, which had a July unveiling or trailer, and then it launched before the holiday, I believe, that year in 2019. And then in 2021, we had the Switch OLED, which came after the not E3 of 2021, where everybody was expecting that there would be a Switch Pro or, this, that, and the other. And then here comes the OLED. And that was, like I said, these were surprise things. That's why I want to get this video out there, or this vlog out there now, because that could happen again. Every 2 years, we got 2017 for Switch, 19 for Switch Lite, 21 for Switch OLED, and now we're at 23. And it could be the next Switch. Who knows? They could just drop it in Twitter or whatever else. And that's a part of my dream scenario. The longer they wait to reveal the next Switch, the closer to the worst case scenario. Now, I'm not saying this in the same situation that the Wii HD days, when everybody thought, oh, the next Wii will just be a Wii HD. It'll have HDMI and blah, blah, blah. Well, it did, but then it was the Wii U, and it came way too late, and the Wii fell off a cliff beforehand, and there was so many problems in that situation. The Nintendo itself and the Switch is not in that same situation that the Wii was in back then. So don't make that comparison there. But I just wanted to get that out of the way. There's a whole other discussion that we could have about why those two scenarios are completely different. The Switch is in a much better position in its seventh year than the Wii was in its twilight years before the Wii U came out. So, so my dream scenario, before we get to the worst case scenario, and then the last scenario that we'll talk about, is what I think Nintendo will probably actually do. A lot of it hinges upon, how soon they reveal it or how soon they announce something, versus backwards compatibility. I think if they don't have backwards compatibility, the later and later and later they're going to wait to announce it, because they know that that's kind of bad news, and it's going to come with a bunch of other bad news attached to that too, because, but I think if backwards compatibility is a guarantee, which I would hope that it is, but who knows, that I think that they'll announce something about that and the next system soon. They've already danced around talking about next gen hardware in the last investors meeting, in the Q&A. So they've got to be getting closer as time goes on. It could only be closer. And they've got that out of the way. They got the non-E3 June Direct out of the way. And now here comes July, which that's why I'm making this video beforehand, in case they do make an announcement beforehand. And there's a lot of rumors flying around too, but there's always been rumors. 2 years ago, we thought the Switch Pro was coming, and it didn't. So anyways, I think that if there is a July announcement, they'll talk about possibly what its name is. They'll have a little trailer, and they'll really, if it's backwards compatible. I don't think that they would announce something in July if it's not backwards compatible. That's my thoughts on it. Because, I mean, they got a lot of big games coming out this holiday on the current Switch. They want those games to be played on any Switch possible. They don't want you to not have backwards compatibility in the next Switch if they're gonna, it's like I said, a lot of this video is gonna, or this discussion is gonna talk about whether it's backwards compatible or not. And I think, and here's my dream scenario, is that it's backwards compatibility is guaranteed, and they're gonna say that soon, and that it might be a part of the July announcement, or they may just go ahead and start to talk about it. And I think that if backwards compatibility is there, it's more likely that it's going to launch in 2023. If it's not, it's going to launch later, and we'll get into the worst case scenario later. But my dream scenario, again, continuing, is that it's going to be like a Game Boy to Game Boy Color type transition, that there'll be dual mode cards for the Switch that'll work in both the current Switch, and that the next gen Switch will play them, but they'll enhance them somehow. And that there also might be downloadable content patches for older games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Odyssey, the Pokemon games, Metroid. There's already been rumors that there have been teams put together to do enhancement features for downloadable content for Pokemon. And a lot of this downloadable content is coming at the end of this year, which could line up with them announcing and revealing and launching before the end of this year the next Switch. Could be. I don't know. But I think the transition will, again, hopefully be like Game Boy to Game Boy Color in my dream scenario. And this is important and key because there's lots of different hardware levels with the Game Boy back then. There was Game Boy, Super Game Boy Pocket, Game Boy Color. And they all pretty much played all the same games in the beginning. But then eventually, there was the dual mode carts that played in both, but then there was, enhanced features for the more enhanced hardware. And then eventually they moved on and made it to where there was only Game Boy Color games, and that was it. Until, of course, Game Boy Advance came out. But I think that means that there'll still be strong support for the current Switch. And I think along the lines of this announcement, I'll talk about Metroid Prime 4 later, but that it'll be cross-platform. And then, the current Switch will still have a lot of strong support. They've already announced a couple of games from Nintendo first party. Of course, one is a port of the 3DS Luigi's Mansion 2, but another one is a new Princess Peach game. So we'll see what they do with that. But they obviously want to do the more niche stuff and the smaller stuff, probably for the larger user base to increase sales. They don't want to make something like that as a next gen one when only the people who have the next gen one can play it, that kind of thing. So again, the transition is going to be smoother. There's going to be a period of time when the games are mainly going to still only come to Switch, but there's going to be enhanced features on the Switch, the newer Switch. And, third parties, of course, will jump on the newer Switch because more power, they can do that. Cool. Nintendo can let them carry that. But Metroid Prime 4, I think, will be a something that will show off the hardware visuals. But it was already promised to the current Switch, so they'll probably make it to where it's a dual mode card to where you have to download patches to make it 4K or whatever they do for for it to show off the hardware visuals of the next system, or features even. It could be something like there could be a head-mounted display and it's virtual reality or augmented reality or something goofy like that. Could be one of the extra gotchas on the next system. We don't know yet. That's kind of a part of my dream scenario. I'd always thought, oh, Metroid Prime would be awesome in virtual reality or with a head-mounted display or you know, something, you know, and the Switch I think is good for that, but it needs a little bit more power, maybe better screen. OLED is already a really nice screen, but maybe higher resolution. I don't know. But the nice thing about the Switch in virtual reality, going off topic here, is that, you know, it's already got hands-free controllers, or not hands-free, but, you know, freehand controllers, I guess you could say, or, you know, controllers that like would work in a 3D space or virtual reality space, built in. It's got a screen built in. It's portable. It's got a battery built in. You know, these are all things that all you would have to do is just basically have a separate head-mounted display, and boom, it's virtual reality. But you know, that's a whole other point. And I think a part of my dream scenario is that, you know, it's Metroid Prime or the Metroid Prime series would be a prime candidate for that kind of gameplay, you know. So I talked about transition being like Game Boy to Game Boy Color, that there might be a July announcement, and I think, you know, if there is, and if there's backwards compatibility, that it'll be revealed soon, and they'll talk about that soon, and that Metroid Prime 4 will be cross-platform, so that it can still come to the original Switch, maximize sales, and then show off the new Switch with its, you know, better features or better visuals, and launch before the end of 2023. You'll note in my last video, they didn't really give a big holiday game. I mean, don't get me wrong, Super Mario Wonder and Super Mario RPG are big games in their own respective ways, but like they didn't. Where's their December game? I don't even think that there was a November game. Basically, a big holiday game. What was that? Well, maybe it's Metroid Prime 4, which has been rumored, and maybe they were saving that back for the September Direct, or maybe they were, you know, that could be a part of the tease. Is, you know, if they do a reveal soon and it's a trailer and you hear Metroid Prime, but you can't see it because the person's wearing a head-mounted display or something like that. Kind of like Wii-ish in a way, the way they revealed that. You know, you knew what they were playing, but you couldn't see what they were playing, but you saw how they were playing it. It was in a different way, blah, blah, blah. Not that I think that virtual reality is guaranteed or a head-mounted display is going to be the main selling point. No. I think that'll be one of the side things. The whole concept of the Switch is it can be played on TV or on the go in tabletop mode, and maybe they'll just add in HMD mode, head-mounted display mode, as another one of those modes that you could play it in, you know. And likewise, I don't think that they will they'll make it out to be like, oh, this is just the next Switch or the next piece of hardware. It's your current Switch is still good. Don't get me wrong. They're still going to have games coming to it, going into 2024, maybe even 2025, and Nintendo will continue to support it. But here's this new one that enhances your old games with backwards compatibility and has new games on it. You know, this, that, and the other. So, and then there's plenty of events from now until a November launch or a holiday launch that they could take advantage to. And Nintendo's been active in telling people, hey, they're going to Gamescom. Or at least we know that they're going to Gamescom. They haven't really touted that, I guess. They have their own Nintendo Live event. Now, Gamescom is in August. I'm not saying that it's going to be revealed in August, but if they say something in July, people will be asking questions in August, you know, at Gamescom. And then there's a Nintendo Live event at the beginning of September, and at the end of September, TGS. Now, we know that they're not going to be presenting at TGS, Tokyo Game Show, but they will be there. And they said in a business capacity. So maybe it's along the lines of, well, now we can finally tell you that this game and this game and this game that these third parties are showing off at TGS are also going to be compatible with the next Switch. Then there's a September Direct, like they usually have every year, and that's when they might show off more stuff, like Metroid Prime 4. And then there's a lot of big third-party games that have been held off from the current Switch. Maybe they're waiting until this next Switch comes out, and maybe that's why it would be this year. Games that were previously on the cloud, like Kingdom Hearts, maybe they could, finally release it for real to actually play natively. Maybe some kind of Final Fantasy will come over too. Those are just whatever. I would be more interested in Resident Evil, the newer ones, and the remakes of like 1, 2, and 3, and 4, actually 2. Maybe Elden Ring, although there has been no rumors about that. So Mortal Kombat 1, they said it was for the current Switch, and that there would be a special team for that, but maybe there's Mortal Kombat 1 is also coming to the next Switch. Maybe Street Fighter 6. Genshin Impact and Hogwarts have been delayed so many times, and maybe they'll come to the next Switch instead. And then there's also Call of Duty, which we know that there's a team working on that in Texas, but is it for the current Switch or for the next, or maybe both? Who knows? I don't know. But my dream scenario ends that it would come out before the end of this year, probably around November. And part of why they first started talking about Nintendo accounts would be counted with that, and then they also said that they want to avoid shortages and scalping. Is maybe that's what it is. It's like you can't get one unless you have a Nintendo account, and then you order it through them, or some of it's allocated to be ordered through the Nintendo account, and the rest of it's going to be, obviously at retail, at brick and mortar stores. We'll see. That's a part of my dream scenario, or that's my whole dream scenario, that Metroid Prime 4 and will be the big launch title for the next Switch, and that it's coming out before the end of this year. I also have something else, which is what's in this picture, scroll wheels, which have been rumored for a while now, and that Nintendo has already had patents for that. That's what's up here. An actual D-pad on the Joy-Con. And 4 face buttons, so you've got the Super Nintendo layout right there. And then you've got the stick in the middle, but that it's interchangeable. Now, Nintendo has had patents in the past where, and that's what this is right here. You're sliding this out. This is supposed to be, as you can follow my fingertips here if you're watching this, something that you could pop out and put something else in. It could be a screen. It could be a touch sensor. It could be a flat stick. It could be a gauged stick. It could be a Hall effect stick. It could be, a scroll wheel or a trackball or something. Who knows? Or not. I said scroll wheel, but that's a shoulder thing. What I meant was trackball or, a jog wheel or something like that. Who knows? But like putting the D-pad in the prime position would be nice for a lot of the games that have already been on the current Switch and maybe in the future. Maybe it's a more advanced D-pad. Who knows? Something to alleviate the Joy-Con drift backlash, and something that could alleviate that is that the Switch Joy-Cons are modular in the center, and there's little pieces of hardware that you can take out when they're worn out or broken or need to be cleaned or whatever, and then replace it with a new one, a more advanced one, a different one, something new. Like I said, like a little screen or some kind of touchpad or a sensory. I had the idea a long time ago of a sensory pad where it's basically, I don't know if you've ever seen Braille translators, but for blind people, they have these things that go over their thumb, and they can actually run it over text on a actual black and white page, and it'll turn it into Braille for them. Well, you could use that same kind of technology. This is an idea I'm just throwing out there. You could use that same kind of technology to have some kind of sensory feel for your finger, which would go really nice, or for your thumb, which would go really nice with virtual reality. But that's, that's all craziness. And that, this is all part of my dream scenario. And that's why they make the Joy-Cons more fully functional separately. It'd make them modular for upgrading, the sticks or some kind of thing in the center. And then the scroll wheels and everything else. I mean, that's the rumors are that like dev kits are already out there, but they don't want people showing off the new controller. So they have made the dev kits purposely like the old dev kits for the current Switch. Only, they don't want people showing off the new controller. In the dev kits, because probably there's more features for them, or different features, or something crazy about the controllers. These are my crazy ideas. Maybe Nintendo has crazier ones, or maybe they're not so crazy. They just don't want people to ruin the secret or whatever. Okay, so the next thing to talk about is the worst case scenario. Why hasn't it been? They have talked about it more. Why haven't they revealed it yet? Why haven't, if they don't reveal something in July, and if nothing comes out before the end of this year, and they're waiting till 2024 or later, this could be a situation where there is no backwards compatibility. And why wouldn't they have that? They have lots of reasons, like the hardware could be too different that it can't be backwards compatible. Or it's not cost effective because they would have to include the original hardware in there. But it could more have to do with piracy prevention. Like, the GameCube was hacked. That led to the Wii being hacked. The Switch, the original launch version, was hacked. That led to the other Switches being hacked. So on and so forth. And they're never going to stop hackers, and they need to look at things differently. But the worst case scenario is that they're so concerned about hacking and modding hardware and piracy and, and all that, and also leaking the game before the games even come out. I think some of that stuff had happened intentionally. Like how could anybody have the game that early to, so that they could ring up the chorus to sing the anti-piracy basically propaganda, so that they could justify going digital only, or so that they can justify no backwards compatibility, or so that they can justify a digital focused future where they completely control everything, and make it to where any kind of loopholes in hardware or in the software can be patched up or can be fixed digitally before it becomes a bigger problem. The bigger a system is, all popular systems and even unpopular systems get hacked. That's just a fact of life. But Nintendo is going to try to do everything they can to prevent that. And so the worst case scenario is that the piracy prevention leads to crazy paranoia within Nintendo, and that they're just going to milk the current Switch as long as they can, because they're making tons and tons of moolah off of it. And they're going to wait and wait and wait before they bring out a next Switch. And by that point, it might not even be a Switch. It might be a system that's completely radically different. They may be waiting for GameStop to fail. They may be waiting for physical media to die off more, so that a digital only future and a future without backwards compatibility because it can't play cartridges or something is more acceptable. And these are all, to me, nightmare worst case scenarios, because if there's no backwards compatibility, then, it could be for those reasons. And that just goes in line with them possibly making it a digital only, or at least a more digitally focused system that wouldn't play. We already know that there has been some problems with the cartridges, and in the sense of like, some developers don't want to pay for the higher end ones, so they just make everything downloadable. Or in some cases, even with discs, which are cheaper to manufacture, some companies have made it to where like they're still putting a code in the box when you go to buy it at a store, and you get a code in a box. You don't even actually own your thing. You just have to download it. That's ridiculous. That's the future that they all want to go towards. It's the easier scenario for them. And I really hope that that doesn't happen with the next gen Switch, but that's the worst case scenario. And in which case they could just justify not having backwards compatibility. They can justify being digital only and totally radically changing the system. It may not even be a Switch. It may not be a next one. And that may be why one of the first things that they mentioned was, oh, we're still going to keep the Nintendo accounts going forward. Well, you better keep something, because if that's your, and again, this is the worst case scenario. I think between my dream scenario and the worst case scenario, the most likely scenario for Nintendo to go through is something in the middle. And it's going to be hinging upon whether it's backwards compatible or not. And that's why if it's not backwards compatible, it's hinging towards more the worst case scenario. But I don't think it'd be completely the worst case scenario, at least I hope not. That would be, it's kind of like when you were watching, if you were watching or you were paying attention during the Wii HD rumor days, and then the Project Cafe, and then it ended up being the Wii U, and you're like, no, Nintendo, don't do this. I mean, I saw the Wii I knew it was going to be an instant success. I saw the Switch. I knew it was going to be an instant success. I saw the Wii U, and I was like, oof, well, we'll have to wait till next gen, for, not to say that the Wii U didn't have some kind of merit to it. It did, but like comparatively to the Wii before it and the Switch after it, there is no comparison. It was, and it shows in the sales and the reception and the mind share that it received, or didn't receive, I should say. But Nintendo's likely scenario is that if Metroid Prime 4 is going to be their big holiday thing this year, which that's a rumor. Some say that it's already done, and that the only thing that they're doing now is just cleaning up, like maybe downloadable content or patching it for the next gen system, or it basically that it's going to be cross-platform. I think that is going to be one of the first things that if whether it's backwards compatible or not, they'll have to release one version of it that only works kind of like Twilight Princess and kind of like Breath of the Wild. I was talking about Metroid Prime before. I think Nintendo may be aiming for Metroid Prime 4 to be the Metroid series is finally their Breath of the Wild moment, where it's a launch title, it's cross-platform, it reaches a big audience, it's going to be huge, and great marketing, and it's going to be a great game. But we don't know yet. We haven't even seen it yet. But it could be in the September Direct, and it could be the big holiday release this year, or they could be saving it for the next gen exclusively. Although I do think that it'll come to the current Switch too, whether the next one is backwards compatible or not. Another scenario is that they might have a physical and digital versions of the next system. I don't like it. I don't think it would be a good idea, but I think they may go with something like that. If anything, maybe like a next version of a Switch Lite would be digital only, or who knows? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there as an idea of Nintendo's likely scenario. If there is no backwards compatibility, they will downplay it and they will tout a new gimmick instead. And they will push it back because they want to milk the current Switch as much as possible. So it'll be 2024 or maybe even 2025 before this comes out. But if there is backwards compatibility, it is completely possible that it would come out this year so that they could say, oh, this is the new model Switch, play Super Mario Wonder on it. Oh, your older games will look better, and there's new games coming to it. But don't worry, there's still new games coming to the current Switch too. Blah, 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 that kind of thing, you know? And backwards compatibility is going to help in the transition. But if there is no backwards compatibility, they're gonna milk the current Switch because that's their cash cow right now. Because the next one they know is probably not going to sell as well without backwards compatibility. And there's got to be some reason why they would keep it out if they are going to keep it out. Maybe it's the piracy prevention. Maybe it's the paranoia over early leaks of big games. Who knows? I don't know what the real reasoning would be, but it'd be probably a culmination of all those. And they will tout the new gimmick instead. And that's if they start touting, oh, it's going to have a new feature, and they're not talking about backwards compatibility, and they're waiting to release it, then that could possibly mean there's no backwards compatibility. And that could lead to the worst case scenario, I really hope not, but if there is backwards compatibility and they say something about it soon and the system launches soon, then it could be my dream scenario, and where, all my dreams come true. And I think that's what a lot of people's dreams are. They want a better Switch, more powerful, and they want backwards compatibility. Those are the top two things that I hear that people want in the next Switch. They don't want something different. They don't, they could care less about if it's going to have a gimmick or not. Some people, I care more about whether it has a better Joy-Con or not. That'd be great. I think it should still be backwards compatible with the current Joy-Cons, but, newer Joy-Cons would be nice. Especially with the ideas that I already put forth in this picture and in this video earlier. And Metroid Prime 4 as the big push, having its Breath of the Wild moment, and having all those big third-party games to carry the idea that, hey, this is a bigger next-gen system. But at the same time, Nintendo themselves was kind of like, okay, well, we're still making games for the current Switch. Because, financially, mind share wise and overall market share wise, that's probably the best case. And when more people are buying, a lot of people thought that they would get rid of the current Switch when the Switch OLED came out. That still really hadn't happened yet. I imagine it'll come out, if there's a new Switch coming out, OLED will take over as the old Switch. Maybe they'll lower the price. And the new Switch will have a higher price point, and they'll still have the 3-tiered level: Lite, OLED, and the new Switch. So just let me know what you think about my dream scenario and what Nintendo will likely do instead, or the worst case scenario. Let me know in the comments in the video. Thank you.